I am the Borough President of Manhattan, and I appreciate very much, again, that you're here. I am Gale Brewer, and we're going to be talking together about analyzing, criticizing, support, and asking questions about congestion pricing and how it impacts New York City, but particularly Manhattan.
We have a double crisis in transportation in this city. We have a crisis below ground with a subway system which has suffered from decades of underinvestment. And we have a crisis on our streets with congestion that is choking our city's economy. It's impacting our health, our environment, our safety. And we have to tackle these two twin crises that are feeding each other.
I support congestion pricing as a concept because it is one of the only documented and proven methods to discourage unnecessary vehicular travel in major city cores. But that doesn't mean we don't have to make sure this program works for everyone. I am here tonight primarily to convey that my office is here to listen to the voices of my constituents and everyone else present, so I can be sure to advocate effectively when I speak to my colleagues in Albany who are considering this legislation.
New Yorkers deserve world-class transportation and transit systems, and congestion pricing can help solve two of the most pressing issues we have in New York City. First, it can generate sorely needed dedicated revenue to fund MTA's subway and buses, improving public transit across the city. And second, it can help reduce traffic and relieve congestion on roadways in the CBD.
The time is now for New York finally implement congestion pricing, and we should get it done so that we can rescue our MTA and save our planet.
I would point out that you have value-added taxes that can be applied to commercial real estate, the single biggest beneficiary of the mass transit system. You do not need this revenue source to accomplish the revenue goals the system requires.
I'm curious to know, Ed, who is going to run the congestion pricing plan? Is it being run by the MTA, DOT, some sort of partnership?
There are many city agencies that have expertise over the land use and infrastructure on our streets, like DOT, so we would be a part of the system. I don't think that there has been a decision on exactly who runs the ticketing process yet.
If we do not get the congestion pricing revenue or something to replace it, it will be extremely difficult to fund fast forward, if not impossible.
Do you have any projections for how much revenue this could possibly generate for the city of New York?
I mean, $15 billion is what we can generate from bond revenues against the $1 billion a year from congestion pricing.
Just over how much time, to give people an idea of what you're saying? 15 billion over?
Over 10 years, let's say, 5 years, 10 years.
How do you assure to the public that these funds will not be wasted?
We're reducing the level of customization in our contract specs, and we're empowering project managers to make decisions, take on greater responsibility. And we think through these efforts, we're confident that we can better control the cost of future capital work.
I'm a strong advocate of congestion pricing in Manhattan as an effective way to reduce traffic congestion and protect the environment. I'm concerned, however, about the impact on neighborhoods outside the zone, which will become attractive areas for commuters to dump their cars to transfer to public transportation.
The MTA is also counting on congestion pricing revenue to pay for elevator installation in subway systems, making the whole system accessible by 2034. This would completely transform the system for New Yorkers who use wheelchairs, saving hours of travel time each week.
If we continue to push the MTA funding off and not find ways to make improvements, I think the subway is going to continue to spiral down until they're completely unusable and everyone is driving or taking taxis going 1 mile an hour on the city streets.
Climate change is one of the greatest threats we face, and congestion pricing would contribute to solving the global climate crisis by reducing carbon pollution from vehicles in New York City.
The city of New York just spends your money and there is no accountability for it.
I'm really dismayed to hear that the FDR will be the free zone. My community is an environmental justice community, and the people who will be most impacted by that are already the most vulnerable people living in NYCHA housing. So please, think about future generations, not only your convenience for today.
Unless we do something and get a continuing source of funding into the MTA, our whole mass transit system, which has always been our great joy here in New York for the last 120 years, will not be able to function.
I do think that people living in the zone should be exempted from the congestion pricing.
You should not be penalized for living in the congestion pricing zone. I really believe that.
I want to see some action in actually relieving congestion in the city before we tax ourselves. That is utterly ridiculous. This is a regressive tax. Middle-class New Yorkers rely on their cars. I don't drive, but we got a car after 9/11 because we knew that that was our only way off the island. People should not be landlocked here because they can't afford to even get on a Long Island Railroad card to get out of here. Poor people, middle-class people rely on their cars. We don't want a parking permit.
The city has imposed a new surcharge on taxis, and as somebody who loves yellow cabs, I really think they are getting screwed. So I am very concerned about particularly the yellow cab fee. I will be honest with you, something to be discussed.
We taxi drivers here in New York, we call the congestion pricing surcharge a suicide surcharge. It has been, we already collecting taxes for the state. Beginning February 2nd of this year, we began with collecting $2.50 for each fare. But let me remind you that we've been collecting 50 cents since end of 2009. Already 10 years we've been collecting 50 cents for every fare. It amounts to approximately close to $700 million. The MTA, what does the MTA did with $700 million? Who knows?
We need the tax on yellows, greens, and neighborhood liveries to be repealed.
Thank you.
There's enough money from Senator Hoylman's pied-à-terre tax. It's expected to generate $900 million, according to the governor. It can offset the exemption for yellow and green drivers who will not survive. 25,000 of them will be out of a job if we don't repeal this regressive tax.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
These are all Uber and Lyft drivers, and most of them are empty. These are the cars that need people who need to be regulated. As far as I am concerned, congestion pricing is just another tax placed on already overtaxed New Yorkers. Thank you.
Let's talk about taxing the people who can pay most ably, the very wealthy. And so an issue that I have been, that I floated back in 2014 and wrote a bill would place a tax on so-called pied-à-terres, which I say, thank you, which I say is French for taxing very wealthy foreign people, who have second homes in New York worth $5 million or more, which we think could raise over $300 million a year.
I want to be very clear, it is not over in Albany. Your suggestions tonight will be considered, and we will work for Manhattanites, because that's what we are. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you being here tonight. Good night.